Hey, what's up guys? Joker here, and I hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to exclusively be talking about the new Half Life Alyx game, a highly anticipated game which we had no idea was coming until just a couple of days ago. But yesterday we got the very first trailer which featured some gameplay, and also there was about a 22-minute interview with Jeff Keighley, which laid out some of the other details that maybe you guys might have been asking about, like why is this game not going to be supported on mouse and keyboard, and why are we getting a prequel featuring Alyx rather than a true sequel to finally wrap up the story that was left on a cliffhanger at the end of episode 2 featuring Gordon Freeman, which I think is what most people probably wanted. So we're going to be talking about all of that here today in this video. Did you just finish building a sweet gaming rig only to have this happen to you? Not to worry, because your CD Key has you covered with Windows 10 Pro licenses for under $15. And if you head over there right now, you could save 20% off with my code JPD20 at checkout. You'll receive your key within seconds, and then just click the start button and type activate to find the Windows activation screen, and all you gotta do then is paste your code in. For more info as well as that coupon code, be sure to check out the links down in the description below. So you'll see the gameplay trailer playing right now for Half Life Alyx, but I'll also leave a link down below to our sources, which will feature the Half-Life video that you'll see playing in the background now, as well as the full 22-minute interview with Jeff Keighley, where he sat down with some of the developers from Valve. And first up, before we get into the details of this, I just quickly wanted to say that the game, I think, personally does look amazing. Like, graphically speaking, it's hands down one of the best looking VR titles that we have seen to date, and it's probably going to be the best use of VR up until now, as really every kind of game that has come out to this point almost just really feels like a tech demo for virtual reality, where this seems like an actual full-fledged game, which Valve did say this is going to be a full-fledged title. They said it's going to be about the same exact length as Half-Life 2, which they estimated at 12 to 15 hours. So you're going to get a full-on single-player experience, but sadly, for people that don't own VR headsets, this is going to be exclusive to virtual reality. And, as I said in the video the other day, I wasn't too sure if I was going to pick up a headset for this, because I don't currently own a VR headset. And right now, initially seeing the gameplay and the graphics and the visuals, I'm just like, I'm really excited for it, and I want to go out and buy a VR headset like right now. You can grab the Valve Index for like $1,000, but there are definitely other options you can get if you really want to play this game. You can pick up a used Oculus Rift, or you can get Oculuses down as low as like around $400. You might even be able to find a used one cheaper than that on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or whatever. So there are definitely options there if you don't want to go out and, put out money for the flagship VR headset from Valve that will set you back $1,000 for the unit, the controllers, the base stations, all of that. So you definitely have some options there if you just really want to play this game. And right now I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like I said, I really do want to see the final reviews, because I've seen VR trailers and demos before where I'm just like, okay, this looks really great, but then the gameplay itself is kind of ass. So we'll have to see what goes on here with that, and hopefully the story is good, as most of the writers from the original Half-Life games have since moved on, and it's completely new people working on this. So we'll just have to wait and see on it, but let's get delved into the details as to why this is not going to be coming to mouse and keyboard, and also why they were actually scared to make Half-Life 3. So there was an interview with Jeff Keighley, who you guys are probably familiar with, and he sat down with Valve's David Sparer, Robin Walker, and Dario Casali, and asked a bunch of questions to get some more details about the game. So when they were asked about why this would not be coming to mouse and keyboard, which you should gauge your expectations, is this probably will never come to mouse and keyboard, and what they explain here totally makes sense. Here's what they had to say. They said, we would love to be delivering a version of this that you could play with a mouse and keyboard, but like as we said, it began as an exploration of VR. The more we use the controllers and the headset, we realize the amount of interactions that this gives, the amount of possibilities these things give us. The more we explored this, the more we realize that there's so much opportunity that we really can't translate back to the keyboard. They go on to explain that a little bit further by saying that when you can track your hands separately from your head, they are all 3D space, all simultaneously tracking and moving. You just can't get that with a mouse and keyboard. And when you put that into game mechanics, the kind of interactions that we can do now, we couldn't possibly do with a mouse and keyboard, which Dario Casali did explain a little bit further by saying that opening doors, as an example, of these new VR mechanics. Players can now slightly open doors and start firing their guns, slowly open them or knock them. They can also open them and throw a grenade in and then close the door. So these kind of mechanics just really wouldn't translate very well over to the mouse and keyboard. And if they were to do it with the mouse and keyboard, they would basically have to take an entire section of the keyboard and dedicate it to just opening doors. So even with a keyboard with all the buttons on it, you would basically end up using the entire thing if they were, and probably even more than that if they were to try to map all of these different 3D spaces at the same time to the mouse and keyboard. So it would seem like it would be almost impossible, because they started this out as basically just trying to make something in VR, and we're using assets from Half-Life, and they explained that all in this interview. And then it kind of was like, well, let's actually make a full-on Half-Life game. And, you know, obviously they kicked around the idea of making a Half-Life 3, but sadly they said they were actually scared to make Half-Life 3, which I guess makes sense, because the internet now is very difficult to please, and with, you know, the hype around, you know, just the lore of Half-Life, the history of Half-Life, and how, you know, big it is in a lot of gamers' minds, especially people of my generation who played these games when they initially came out. They were a huge deal when they came out, and they're still a huge deal today, as they still hold up really well. You know, if you're part of the younger generation and you're watching this video and you haven't played them, they hold up really well, especially like the first game. You can get Black Mesa, which has updated graphics, visuals, 4K, and all that. And they look absolutely incredible still to this day, especially if you start getting into modding them, although obviously it doesn't look as good as Half-Life Alyx. They still look pretty darn good, and obviously performance shouldn't really be an issue for most people out there. But, you know, when it comes to Half-Life 3, I guess they were scared to make it. As they go on to explain here in the interview, they said, I mean, in all honesty, back in 2016 when we started this, Half-Life was just terrifying. Half-Life 3, terrifyingly daunting prospect, right? And I think to some extent, VR was a way we could fool ourselves into believing we had a way to do this. So they basically had to trick themselves into making a Half-Life game by dedicating it to VR, and I guess in hopes that, you know, it would make people not really relate it as much to the previous Half-Life games and then judge it on its own merits, which you really should do anyway. And obviously people are still going to judge this for what it is when it comes out, and some people are going to compare it to the old Half-Lives for sure. You're going to have to make those comparisons. Is it as good? Is it better? Was it worth the wait? Was it a good decision to move it over to VR? All of these questions are going to have to be asked when the game does finally come out. And they also went on to say that because by starting with VR and then trying to think about Half-Life and how it worked with it and playtesting those, you're immediately in a space where we have something we understand well. Half-Life's core gameplay and a new platform with new prospects and new possibilities, and we can do that translation, and then we can watch people play. And so within a week or two, we're starting to learn. We are able to watch someone go through it, and so it was really easy to not try to think about the big picture of, oh, we're making Half-Life 3. We could just focus and figure out what people enjoy in this and then make forward progress. And they also said that in some ways, VR was a little bit like the way of the gravity gun helped us in Half-Life 2. It became the tentpole that you could wrap so much around, the innovation around it, and so VR became this thing that we could wrap everything around, whereas Half-Life 3, if it's like, hey, tomorrow you're working on Half-Life 3, and you're like, oh god, it's terrifying. So yeah, I guess from that perspective, it does make sense. You know, they did that with the gravity gun, and they have, I believe it was Gabe Newell that said it before, that there wouldn't be a new Half-Life game until there was a new type of technology that they can kind of focus it around, and that is exactly what they've done with virtual reality. And I think ever since VR headsets came out, I had predicted this very, very early on, that if we did get a new Half-Life game, it would be a VR title, and I was 100% right about that. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it was true, and it did seem kind of obvious to me, honestly, and I think probably to a lot of other people as well. And now that we're getting it, it's exciting to see this universe revisited, and I for one hope that I do have the opportunity to play it at some point next year, whether I pick up a Valve Index or borrow a headset or something like that. Or hey, Valve, if you're seeing this video, I would love to try out your Valve Index and keep it pretty please with cherries on top. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, guys. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I know it was kind of a mixed bag on the recent video that I did where I was upset about this coming to VR, and I still am a little annoyed about that because I would just love to be able to play it, obviously, and not have to sink a bunch of money into it. But right now I'm still on the fence and I want to see those reviews, and let me know your guys' feedback down in the comments below. After seeing the gameplay trailer, or have you been swayed now to want to maybe pick up a VR headset if you were initially against it? I would love to hear that feedback and read through those. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I hope you all have a good weekend. If you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up on it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another video.